Well, hello out there, everybody in radio podcast land. I just want to let you know it's been a little bit of a long week since we've got out. My voice might sound a little raspy to you. That's because I'm a little bit under the weather. I caught the flu. I've been kind of under the weather for the last 5 days, but it doesn't matter. We're here to bring you your wrestling news, your wrestling rumors, everything you want to know about wrestling, especially with the big wrestling scene that's going on in August. We got to talk about a lot of stuff for WWE. We're going to talk about some AEW, and we're also going to talk about some NJPW today, which is kind of unique. So welcome to the Rub Wrestling Podcast with Matt, Josh, and Chris. Big shout out to all you. If you guys want to download and hit a subscribe button for us to help us out, it'd be fantastic. You can hit us up on any of the major places where you can actually find a podcast, like Spotify. You can hit us up on Apple. You can hit us up on YouTube, all that stuff. And basically, if you have any questions for us, you can also reach out to us at therubwrestling@outlook.com. We'd love to take some questions to go over any of the stuff that you really want to talk about on this podcast, because right now we're making up all the content, and if you like it, we'll just keep doing it. But boys, it's been a fun couple weeks. Chris, how's life treating you, my friend?
Pretty good. Started playoffs in my slow pitch and hardball league. Got 2 W's yesterday. Did the old back-to-back, and being 40 years old, I'm pretty sore today. What else? I will be going to see Project X Wrestling this weekend. Might not be able to see too much of SummerSlam because I'll be there, but I should be back in time for Jake Paul demolishing Nate Diaz.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I forgot Jake Paul's fighting Nate Diaz this weekend too. Like it's August is nuts, isn't it? No, straight up.
Busy weekend.
Yeah, Josh, what's going on with you, man? Tell us what's going on. Tell us about some hobbies and shit. Let us know.
Oh, not too much is going on. Just been busy in the garden. The tomatoes are coming around. Looks like it's going to be an epic harvest. Gonna have to get my canning going on. That's about it. Just keeping busy. It's flipped a couple of the beds, and I'm making some black garlic right now in the garage.
It's amazing. I just want to let you know the Canagars have been a big hit around these parts, so we're getting a lot of rave reviews, and if we had to give it a Meltzer rating, it's about 8 or 9 stars. That's what I've been hearing, so straight up for everything like that. But all right, let's get into it. We got a big weekend coming up Saturday. Chris mentioned it already. SummerSlam is on the mend. We're going to talk about a couple of the matches on that card, but let's start off with one of the biggest matches that we have on that card, which is going to be for the SmackDown Women's Championship, I guess World Championship. It's going to be 3 of the biggest names in the business. It's going to be Asuka, it's going to be Charlotte Flair, it's going to be Bianca. We're looking at a lot of big matches. We've seen 2 of these people go off right off the bat. My big question is, Chris, if we're going to go right off, could this steal the show for the premium live event, or the pay-per-view as we used to call them back in the day? Is this going to steal the show from some of the other matches like Roman and Jay, Cody and Brock? Is this the match of the night in your opinion?
Almost 100%. I can say that. Love Asuka, love Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair is going to put her body on the line at some point, do some crazy moonsault. Asuka's just your old reliable, always going to put on a good match. And Bianca's really physical, so I'm actually I'm excited to see what spots they have specifically for Bianca, because she's got the power. And with those 2 kind of carrying her through it, being veterans as they are, this definitely is a show-stealing match, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you when you kind of look at that, Chris. I mean, there's so many. The match is so multifaceted with the skill sets that are involved. You got a Japanese strong style with Asuka. You got a great all-rounder in Charlotte, and you definitely have that power and speed game that's coming from Bianca when you're looking at all the moves, right? I think there's going to be a lot of creativity in this match. It's going to be a real good one. Josh, what do you think it is, fact or fiction, if we had to do our fact and fiction like we've done in the last couple podcasts? What do you think is going to carry it? Do you think it's going to be the wrestling action, or do you think it was the storyline and the build-up that's going to carry it? Because they definitely see all 3 of these women want to be at the top of their profession, for what they're doing. And there could be a lot of like that kind of, professional animosity, I like to call it, for everybody trying to get to the top. Do you think it's going to be the wrestling that's going to carry it?
I think it's going to be a bit of both. They
It?
definitely, three of the best women's wrestlers are going to be in the ring. Charlotte Flair, would call her the queen of women's wrestling, especially in the modern era. And Bianca Belair, future, if not like obviously the present as well, but potentially the next queen. And Asuka just brings that raw physicality and pure wrestling style that really can make for an amazing match. I think that the storytelling is going to be fantastic, but I think that the in-ring ability is going to be far superior to most of the women's wrestling that we've seen recently. I'm not super keen on Bianca Belair. I think she's a physical specimen and that she is a wonderful talent. I'm just not keen on her character, her who she is as a wrestler. I'd love to see her with a huge heel run because I'd like to get rid of that bubblegum kind of thing that she's got going on. But I think that this is going to be a great match. I'm not sure if it's going to be the best match of the night. I hope it is. I really hope that they let these women show what they can do and give them the time. But I think that that's part of the problem with how women's wrestling's been booked recently is they're just not getting the time and they're not getting the headlines. And I think that this is something that could headline SummerSlam. Obviously, it's not going to, but I think that enough is enough. It's time for one of these promotions to book a women's match as a headliner.
Yeah, enough is enough, Chris, and it's time for a change, right? I mean, when we're looking at that, classic Owen Hart. And I think when you're looking at a lot of it, I have to agree with you. I mean, I think when you look at wrestling as an art form and we look at it that way, and I think our podcast likes to look at it this way, the reality is that when you look at women's wrestling, it doesn't get the time it necessarily deserves. And, part of that is due to ratings. Part of that is due to the physicality for some of it. And I'm not saying that they can't. But at the end of the day, we've looked at women's wrestling in Japan. We've looked at women's wrestling all over the place. And some of those matches are more physical than the males when you actually look at Stardom and a couple of these other places. And so when we're going through the matches, and I love the big PLEs in WWE because it's almost like they're kind of let off the chain because there's more time that they've given them to go at it, that they have to kind of fill those gaps a lot more. And I think you're going to kind of see what, that athleticism that we're going to see from Bianca, Charlotte, and Asuka in this match is going to be absolutely unbelievable. And I think it's really going to be a top draw event for women's wrestling for the weekend. It's going to be, in my opinion, for women's wrestling, one of the matches of the year. And there's just no doubt in my mind that's going to happen. And I hope we see a kind of a slide in that it's kind of going to promote some competition coming out of AEW, because we've talked about AEW's women's division, and it's not quite there. I think the athleticism from some of the wrestlers is there. It's a different style, right? So I really hope that it does promote some competition. And even from what we're seeing from some of the physicality from the women's wrestling that we're seeing out of Impact as well. We need a big shot in the arm for women's wrestling. I'm all for it. I think it's a great product, and I think it could do really well, but it's kind of tough to really get invested in somebody over a 5-minute span, right? And I agree with you, Josh. You look at Bianca's character, it's a bubblegum character. I mean, there's a lack of faces. It's I always say from a heel persona, it's actually probably easier to be an asshole than it is to be a good guy. But I think at the end of the day, I mean, she fits the style, but it would be great to see her have to do something dirty to win this match, and gritty, and something that's, against her character. And that'll be kind of something that'll be really interesting, because we looked at Becky Lynch for a long time in that position where she was the face, and when she finally did the dastardly deed and switched over, her character shot to the moon. And I mean, Bianca's already there. The question is, can she take it even higher? And I think that's going to be a real interesting match moving forward. I'm really, really looking forward to it. And everybody out there in podcast land, you should be too, because that's going to be a banger. So now to Chris's second favorite wrestler. I mean, we're not talking about the first one. We're not talking about Omos right now. But Josh's like second last wrestler that he hates. We're going to talk a little bit about our good friend, not Jake Paul, but we're going to talk about Logan Paul, right? Logan Paul has a really interesting match coming up at SummerSlam with Ricochet. And there's been a lot of stuff. Basically, Logan Paul's punched him out. Ricochet's punched Logan out. It's been kind of like this slap fight going back and forth on TV, which is kind of interesting when we're looking at it. The big question that I have to ask for you is that, Josh, when you look at all of the people that you could have put together in the WWE for Logan Paul, is Ricochet the right pairing for him going into a match like SummerSlam or a big PLE? Do you think this was the right move to really kind of get Logan Paul to that next step, or to kind of get Ricochet to that next step? Do you think this is the right pairing?
I'm not sure if it's the right pairing. I think that for sure it's going to be a very physical match. I think that this is a perfect pairing for Logan Paul because he's going to go over hard on Ricochet. Ricochet's for sure taking the pin. I think that part of the problem is that Logan Paul has a losing streak right now and he can't keep on losing, and Ricochet is a perfect person to do the job. I think that, the problem with Ricochet is that he's soft on the mic, and that, even though he puts out this ridiculous talent in the ring, you kind of get bored of it. Not bored of it, it's just that it's not a surprise anymore. And, the spectacular moves that he does, it's just kind of, like you see it and you're like, okay, that's kind of it. I'd like to see him more of in a hardcore match with those moves, because then, you would see his true grit. I would say that he takes DDTs the best. He takes stuff on his head. The way that he sells moves, he should be more prominent. Unfortunately, I think he's just undersized, and he's just not as strong on the mic. But if he was stronger on the microphone and believable when he talked, I think that he would get pushed a little bit harder. But he's a perfect opponent for Logan Paul to go over on.
Chris, so Josh thinks that Ricochet is going to take the L, and that it's basically an easy thing. And I kind of saw you, our viewers can't see, but I kind of saw you kind of nod your head like, yeah, that's what's going to happen. My question is here, if you had to take the loss either with Logan or with Ricochet, who hurts most from taking the L in this match? Because they're almost on a level playing field from what it feels like right now. Logan, because he hasn't had a lot of matches and he's not necessarily there all the time. Like, he kind of comes in and out. And Ricochet, a guy that's been a company guy for probably the last 3-4 years, if not more, and has been a top draw in international wrestling across the world. Doesn't seem like he can crack this glass ceiling in the WWE, it seems. Who really benefits, who gets destroyed the most by taking the loss in this match?
I mean, it won't be that bad for Ricochet. He's expected to lose. I mean, Logan Paul was brought in, given big money, and basically put on a stage. He wrestled for a title, so like he's already above Ricochet. So seeing a Ricochet win here, couldn't expect that. I think this is just to maybe get Logan Paul looking strong and looking good, and setting up a couple spot monkey stuffs, like for a couple big spots in the match, because they can do it. Although when we saw Money in the Bank, we did saw them mess up that move pretty bad, where Logan could have got pretty hurt. But I think that's what they're going for. It's kind of like how we see WWE. There was that spot in the Royal Rumble where they jumped from the ropes and they just try to take lightning in a bottle and just keep recreating it. Does the loss hurt Ricochet? Not any more than any other loss would hurt him, because he's not doing anything right now. Would the loss hurt Logan Paul? I think it would quite a bit if Logan Paul came in here and had his first singles match, or well, I guess on as much of a regular run as we can call it right now for Logan Paul. A loss here would not set him up for success moving forward.
I can agree with the Logan Paul L coming. If he takes the L in this match, I think it's really hard to really book him. You can really make a case for him having a losing streak and making it real difficult. But the reason I thought that this question was really unique is that I honestly believe that this is Ricochet's last chance. He's being put in a ring with a megastar. He's being put in a ring with a guy that athletically is extremely gifted. He might not be a guy that's been wrestling for 10, 15 years, but this is about as high profile match that he's had since being paired with probably Braun Strowman, which was a weird partnership in a tag thing all the way across. And I honestly just believe that this is his last shot at trying to do something where he wants to go. And I still think in his head that he thinks that he's a WWE champion and, like a heavyweight champion or something. Like, I honestly believe that he believes that. But if he loses here, I think he's pretty much finished. I think it's going to solidify him as a low mid-carder. It really kind of sets up his status. Yeah, you can do a lot of great moves, but you're the guy that the company sees as the stepping stone. And I think, like, we've seen it happen to Ziggler. We've seen it happen to so many great talents that are great in the ring that push other people. Like, it's really sad. We're kind of seeing that a little bit with even Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin was probably one guy coming out of NXT that we actually thought, man, like in a year, this guy could be a heavyweight champion. He looks like a heavyweight champion coming out of NXT, and then, doesn't run the gimmick well, buries that gimmick, goes to a gimmick that, the brass really liked, and then it ran its course, and it was pretty much over. And now he's basically back where he started, and now he has this pirate theme that's fucking stupid, and I don't really understand it. But that's just the reality of what it is. I mean, I think this is Ricochet's last shot, in my opinion. And I'm with you guys. I think Logan wins this match. I think Logan goes over, and I think he goes over hard, and it's going to set up something big going into Survivor Series and to close out the winner. Now,
yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? You're paying Logan Paul tons of money. You're not paying him tons of money to lose, right? And
yeah, I think there's kind of a falsity to that, though, Chris. I think it doesn't even matter if he does when you're paying Logan Paul for his TikTok views, right? You're not paying Logan. It doesn't matter if he wins or loses. You're just trying to get people from his large TikTok following to buy in and buy the network, buy merch, buy whatever they need to get him in. It doesn't matter. Like, to me, it doesn't matter if he wins or loses. But if you want to use him as a star that's going to try and get somewhere in the next year or two, then you got to start building him on the wins, right? Like, that's just, like, I'm with you guys. That's the reality. But I think you could book Logan Paul to be 0-10, and the WWE would still win on whatever money they're paying him, because they're going to get more money from him, right? And
he fights Roman Reigns, but when he fights Ricochet, he has to win, because you can't lose to a guy like Ricochet, because then you're buried. Like,
agreed.
That's how I look at it. It's like what they just did to Matt Riddle, right? Like, they buried him by having Kaiser beat him, and Kaiser's a good wrestler, but he's supposed to be the guy that takes a loss for Gunther, not the other way around, right? Like, so when they do something like that with Matt Riddle, they're going to do this with Ricochet. I agree with you, Matt, that it's for sure, this is Ricochet's last hurrah, and then that's fine. Send him to AEW. I'd love to see him in there. Have some fucking bangers.
Well, I mean, I even think of the days, like, Chris, I don't know how much, like, Josh, I don't know if you watch Lucha Underground at all, but you know what, like, I think there's a way to go back and watch it, and it was seasonal, kind of like Netflix seasonal, and he was the world champion over there. Like, he used to be SEMA when he was out. Like, I think he was SEMA. I think that's who he was when he was out there. And, and SEMA was basically fighting all the way across Mexico. He was fighting all the way in Puerto Rico. He was, like, the guy's fought everywhere. And he just can't seem to get a break in these mains. He takes off the mask. He's a good-looking guy, and he just... You've said it all the way through. He never had to develop promo skills. And because he can't have those and he's not believable on the mic, he just can't cut it. He's got all the in-ring ability, in my opinion. It's just... that's just the reality. But, yeah, I think that's what's... I'm with you guys. I think Logan's going to take it. So, I just thought it was a unique question.
Really
right?
hard... Really hard to build up rivalries when Ricochet's main thing is what he can do in the ring. It's in the indies. He was part of when Triple H cleaned out the indies. That's the only reason he was there. And then now we're seeing that because he's stuck in random things where they're trying to force a mic into his hand, and he's just like, he's getting destroyed by Logan Paul on the mic.
But it's like, I also find that when you kind of look at like these one name shows, like he's like kind of like Ricochet, and like to me, if you look at Ricochet and you look at Ricochet and then you look at Axiom in NXT, right? Like Axiom is like a kid from NXT UK, and he's also a world renowned star, can do all the flips and kicks and everything. But there's a big difference because Axiom wears a mask. But you have this guy that doesn't wear a mask, and we know that he has a real name, but his name's Ricochet. And so I think he loses a lot of build-up with just his name. And I felt it was the same way with Neville. Like, I never understood why WWE got rid of Neville. Like, and Neville goes back to
unless
Pac,
your name
and
is Sting.
it's kind of the same thing. I find the one
means,
name thing is just kind of really stupid. It's just my honest opinion. It just it doesn't create a believable character unless they're wearing a mask or like, dude. There's a guy that fights on AEW. His name's Gravity, for God's sakes. Like, I don't know. Like, if you're looking at my face right now, it tells it all. Like, Gravity, and he does an astronaut walk. For Christ's sakes. Correct. Like, we're not in the 70s or 80s anymore, right? Like, we can't all be Taurus or whatever it is, or Black Taurus.
Well, you have cameras everywhere. Kayfabe's dead.
Yeah, I hear you. Anyways, we're going to bring ourselves to the possible main event of SummerSlam. I never like to say what the main event is or what it is, because it can change back and forth. We don't run the cards, but one of the top matches is going to be definitely Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. I know we've kind of talked about this before, and we've kind of talked about, what are the opportunities of Jey winning, and all this stuff. I just want to kind of keep this question nice and simple. Guys, is this going to be a good match or what? Are we looking at a stud or a dud when we're talking about Roman Reigns and Jey and whatever this gimmicky tribal combat match is, whether it's probably no DQ or some Tonga, I don't even know, man. Samoan death sticks come in or whatever the hell happens. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I think it's going to be a stud. I think it's been building up. It's been building up. They've been making like this is the run of the lifetime for Jey Uso. Like it's amazing. So I think he's going to bring it. I think we've seen what Roman can do with Sami Zayn. He can make somebody look good. I think it's going to be a stud. I think it's going to be a match. I really hope, what I really hope is that there's a lot of storytelling. There's a lot of we're family going on during this whole thing. I'm just hoping it's even if the in-ring stuff isn't great, I'm just hoping that the storytelling, I hope they both give it their all in the storytelling aspect of it, and that would be my favorite thing. I don't care who wins as long as it looks good and it's entertaining, and I think they have a real chance to make something really good here.
I have to agree. I think you kind of look at that scenario, and it's kind of, there is that family aspect, and there's a couple different things that are really kind of coming out when I'm thinking about this questions from when we kind of go to do the show, right? Like, Josh, my next question for you is, there's a couple of X factors in this match, which is Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa. And so, Solo's had, even in a lot of the the family meetings and in the beatdowns of Jey and Jimmy numerous times, Solo's been the one that's kind of going through. Do you think Solo kind of gets his comeuppance, or do you think Solo ends up being the person that's going to kind of run away with this match and be kind of the main part of the story after this match? What are your thoughts on that?
What's going to happen with Solo? I think that Roman's going to win, so it's hard to think that Solo's not going to interfere and stay on Roman's side with just me feeling that Roman's going to win. I don't. Maybe Roman wins clean. I've also thought that there's a chance we see Rikishi show up, or maybe Jimmy Uso comes back from injury and there's another swerve there. I just feel like for Roman to win, there has to be a swerve against Jey. And I just don't think Jey is going to win. Now, if Jey wins, that's great, and maybe Solo turns on Roman. But I just don't think that the WWE is ready to take the title off of Roman. I think the plan would be for it to be the biggest event, potentially in London, maybe in WrestleMania. Feel like that's the time that Roman might lose, or if he gets hurt, or he might just retire and give his belt, and then he'll retire the champion. I'm not really sure, but I can definitely think that there is going to be a swerve. Likely it will be Solo Sikoa, Paul Heyman, probably all of them. But I'd be really happy to see a swerve that we're not expecting from someone we're not expecting it from. Whether it be someone from the tribal council or, someone from like a Jimmy Uso turns on Jey. But I don't see that happening.
Personally, for us as wrestling fans, and I'm going to kind of speak for both of you, and it doesn't mean that I do. You can call me You can tell me to stop at any point. But I think that this bloodline storyline has been drug out to the point where it's like, if this was like a punching bag, all the stuffing is starting to come out of the punching bag, and the only thing that's going to fix said punching bag is by restuffing it, by having what you just said, which is a swerve or something an addition to that storyline that is going to kind of inject some energy into it, because it's been the same shit since WrestleMania. It's just been different, and there's been a 37-minute version of it. There's a version with Roman Reigns not in it. There's a version with Jimmy Uso not in it, but it's essentially the same thing. And you know what? I don't know if the casual WWE fan sees it. I think when you're seasoned and you watch a lot, I think you see it over and over. But it's like watching the same storyline on any TV show that lasts like it should have been one season, and now it's 3 seasons, and we're still here because we don't want it to end because the ratings are great, and people are engaged with it. But it's like it's just getting stale. So I think you're right. I think there's gonna have to be some major swerve, and you know what? To the point is, I don't think WWE wants Roman to lose the title, but I think it's an option that you almost have to look at. It's the second biggest pay-per-view of the year, other than WrestleMania, and maybe they want him to go to WrestleMania again and do the Cody Rhodes thing. Maybe. I don't know. But it's like, it just needs like some freshness in it, and I don't know if what Seth Rollins, and not knocking Seth for anything that he's done in the ring, if having that World Heavyweight Championship has really, taken away... Roman having the title for as long as he's had it for over 3 years, right? So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. I'm hoping it's good. I mean, it's a major event. We're going to see a 6-minute Roman Reigns entrance, which we normally will see. Because I'm assuming basically if you're at the stadium, it's going to be a long walk down to the ring. It's going to be the last time, Josh, I think we were high on mushrooms watching Roman Reigns going down the ring in SummerSlam, and it was 11 minutes.
It's a good 11 minutes. Hey,
Or
hey
whatever
Matt,
it
I'm
was.
wondering, do we see a Damian Priest Money in the Bank cash?
Actually, that's another good option too, right? That would be an amazing cash to see that happen and have Judgment Day potentially hold all titles at that point. That'd be probably one of the first.
Yeah, I don't
stables
see
that
them
have done that
fucking
in a
with the
long
story,
time,
but that would be a good way to make everything go terribly. I don't think that Damian Priest wins the title off of Roman Reigns, though, so I think it would be a cash that causes Jey Uso the win.
Imagine that was just kind of a wedge, and then, like, I wish and almost, and I feel bad, like, for Money in the Bank people that hold it, because it's like, it's your career in your hands in a way, right? Like, kind of fictitiously, but almost in real life at the same point. It sounds really stupid, but I wish more people with the Money in the Bank would lose the Money in the Bank. And I think, like, in a lot of cases, like, having a scenario where Priest does come out, and I'm just saying hypothetically for the viewers out there, I'm definitely saying this is very low odds of this happening, but Priest comes in, and that's kind of the wedge to the match that really where all the kind of, it's the detonator to the bomb, right? Like, it's like, that's the shit that happens. Then Solo's involved, we get Jimmy coming out, we got Jay out, and then it's just a gigantic cluster of people in there, and then kind of we get to this kind of really constricted ending. I don't know if you guys ever remember, Chris, do you remember that SmackDown where there was like an 8-man or a 10-man tag, and basically everybody like ran out and hit their finishers, and then Stone Cold ended with a stunner? But it was like, it's not like RVD was in the match, like Chris Jericho was in the match, like they all like, so Jericho hits the lion salt, and then somebody from the other team, it was like during the invasion angle, somebody from the other team comes in, like Kurt Angle comes in and Angle slams him, and like, I don't remember the order, but then Kane will come in and chokeslam. Like, that was one of the best SmackDowns I think I've ever seen, and that was one of the best endings to a SmackDown match. That's what I want to see in that SummerSlam. Not to say that everybody hits their finisher, but just that gigantic cluster of people where you didn't really know what was happening. And if you're watching my head, it was kind of like going like this. Like, left to right. Like, just, I don't know what's happening. Like, what the fuck's going on, right? I think we need to kind of get caught in that, like, we don't want to know what's happening. I don't want to assume that somebody's going to win. I just want to see something crazy happen, and that's what it is, and then I'll be happy with that. So I think that's my...
yeah, and that's... I think I sent you guys that video a while ago where everybody just runs in, everybody hits a finisher,
Yep.
angle slams, turns around, gets rock bottom, Rock gets Stone
Gets
Cold
stuttered.
stunnered. everybody hit their finish right back to back to each other after they hit their finisher is great.
Oh yeah, you got Big Show coming in doing a choke slam. RVD is doing his frog splash. Like, it's just ridiculous all the way through when you're kind of going through it. So good times, but. Yeah, so SummerSlam is going to be a great show. If you want to check any of the cards, there's numerous places you can look. We're not promoting any of these sites, obviously, but you can look at Bleacher Report. You can look at WWE.com. Full card is on there. It's going to be a great show. If you're from Ontario and you can head down to Detroit, Scalpers tickets are going to be crazy, and get across the border quickly if you can to go attend the show. So should be a very, very crazy show this weekend. Looking forward to it. But with that being said, we're going to kind of move away from the second biggest WWE PLE of the year, and we're going to move into some topics that we've talked about in AEW. And there was a massive, not a rumor, something factual that happened today, which was Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and Hangman Adam Page re-signing all of their deals to multi-year deals with AEW. No longer on the WWE radar, not going anywhere. Tony Khan has gone out and said it. The contracts are signed. The deal is done. Chris, is this really going to solidify AEW's stance as a major player in the wrestling industry over the next 5 years?
I would say so. I mean, they'd almost be dead in the water if those four left. So for them to, I mean, we can't, like, let's be realistic. I'm sure they got tons of offers from WWE for a lot of money, and they chose to stay with where they are. I don't know if any of the four would have any success in WWE, to be honest with you. I mean, they're over to a different style of fan base as well. So, and we've seen what WWE does to when they bring people in. They'll kind of showcase them as they are in their indie, kind of in their persona, and then all of a sudden they just drive them to the ground and have them lose match on match. Especially with the Young Bucks, I think, and Kenny Omega. I mean, they've done their time. They've started their own wrestling business. I mean, they deserve to have a say in what they do, and I think this is the place where they can do it, and I think they made the right decision.
I'd have to agree with that. I think you're kind of looking at what it is, and my question kind of stems from one of the Cody Rhodes documentary that recently happened, and obviously it's a WWE documentary. They have him saying a bunch of stuff, and I believe Triple H referred to AEW, Josh, as a second-tier company or a second-rate company. When you look at what AEW has done now and what they're going to be doing in August, and now signing the Bucks, signing Kenny Omega, and also signing Hangman Page, four of the best wrestlers on planet fucking Earth, are they a second-tier promotion, or are they basically, vaulting ahead of WWE at that point? Are they there yet, or are they going to be on the verge of doing that, or are they not going to do it at all?
Just like, I don't consider AEW a second-tier promotion. I just don't think that they're as successful financially and as large worldwide as WWE. But that doesn't mean that they're a secondary promotion. In fact, they're for pure wrestling fans, they're the primary promotion, in my opinion, because they give you exactly what you want. The WWE promotes to a broader audience, and I think that for those markets that aren't in North America or even just the U.S., I think that the AEW appeals to a broader audience because the wrestling fans abroad enjoy the pure sport, and they enjoy the aspect of wrestling more, instead of, like, not to say the promos, but they respect the art of wrestling, and it's not just what it's not just the fireworks. It's what's happening on the ring. And I think that I agree with Chris and Matt exactly, that they would be underutilized in the WWE. In fact, they wouldn't be able to do what they do in the WWE because the WWE would ban a lot of their moves. Their effectiveness in the ring is because AEW allows them to be the artists that they are. And I think WWE doesn't allow for as much artistic input. That's why these wrestlers continue to stay with AEW. And I think that's what's going to happen, is that if these wrestlers believe in themselves and believe in the promotion's just going to get bigger. And they're going to take little chunks out of WWE. And if you look at just like what they're doing with London, are they not the primary promotion in England now? WWE hasn't done what they did. WWE sure is going to try, and they're going to succeed. If WWE puts WrestleMania at London, they're going to go bigger, 100%. It's because they're going to just invest in it. But AEW is definitely giving them a run for their money. They're not a secondary promotion, but they're just not the biggest promotion.
And that's factual. I mean, what you just said about AEW in the UK, they're the number one wrestling show in the UK right now. And in some cases, when it's coming to the stuff that we see with Dynamite and the ratings that are coming through, I mean, Dynamite effectively killed off a Wednesday night NXT, right? Like, honestly, like over a course of a month, like literally beat them every single show. The ratings aren't necessarily comparable for what they have. They're going by demographics, they're going by the amount of viewerships, and that's how they're trying to determine the winner. But I think when you're looking at the whole spectrum of what it is, I think like they're you're right. They're not a secondary promotion. They're your competitors. But it's different from WCW. They're almost two different products. Like WCW and WWE, they tried to run the same demographic. Really, an Attitude Era at that point was what? TV 14. It's not like that anymore for what you're looking at for WWE. It's a lower demographic. It's a family. It's kind of family oriented, where AEW is trying to go a little bit higher. And I think we've talked about that before. So they're not necessarily competing for the exact same demographic as much as they believe. They're just looking to be whoever's higher in the ratings, whoever's higher in this. But I think when we look at the long run, I think what you're going to find is I think WWE is going to become very petty with this. And I think there will be a WrestleMania in London. If it's not this year, if it's not next year, it'll be the year after. And they're going to really make sure that whatever number AEW comes up with, that they trash that number by 20%. And that's going to be the reality of it. And it's like, if I was Tony, I just wouldn't do another show in England like that, a big show at Wembley, for another couple years, and I wouldn't even try to beat their number. I would just kind of go under the bridge and just deal with it, because WWE just tries to smash every other company into the ground so that everybody can see their product, and that is not happening anymore, and that's not going to happen, because they are basically, in my opinion, and not everybody's opinion, I'm not knocking anybody that watches WWE, but they're all about the storyline and the production value, and the product has suffered for the last couple of years with that, right? So when we're looking in the long run for long-term wrestling growth, there's more of an upside with AEW than there actually is with WWE, and that seems really, really weird to say. But WWE has, well, exactly what you said, Josh, the money and the power to kind of push past that if they need that. But they're not going to get people going in from the indies, because in a lot of cases now, Kenny Omega actually had a quote where he said one of his favorite things that he gets to do as an executive vice president is to actually pay these guys enough money that they can support their families and to do what they love to do. And WWE doesn't necessarily care about any of the other people. So where are you going to go if you're a wrestler, and to try and make it? Are you going to go to AEW or are you going to go to WWE? That's the way I look at it.
Life that they have with the schedule, right? Like AEW schedule is not as hectic. These people who have families, they get to go back to their families. They can have, parts of their lives not taken away from them. And I think that in today's day and age, especially because, but a lot of the wrestlers are men. Like in today's day and age, the men are expected to be more participative in their families. And I think that they value it. If you just look at like how Dax Harwood talks about his daughter, and they all talk about their families like that. And even if they were a heel and you got them to cut it, they were talking, with an interview, they would talk about their families and talk about how important it is to them. And I think that is how AEW has the advantage of continuing to sign these big name wrestlers, because they're giving them something that WWE will never offer, and that's a reasonable schedule.
And you're kind of seeing now where a lot of cases where a lot of wrestlers are not really indie wrestlers that have been around for a long time. Some of them are signing with WWE, but not as much as before. And even WWE are trying to use these next in line deals to come through. But like we talked about earlier, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, that they have a love for or a passion for the game, right? Like everybody else does. So it makes it really difficult. But it'll be interesting to see with the Elite re-signing, how that's going to kind of trickle down into the wrestling world, how that's going to trickle down, because it doesn't have just effects here in the Canada and the US and North America, and it really affects stuff that happens in Europe. It really affects what's happening overseas as well, and that's a really important view when we look at that. All right, so other than that, guys, let's bring it to our second topic, which is basically going to be... We're going to talk about FTR and the finals of the tag tournament, the blind tag tournament with MJF and Adam Cole. That was basically the final of that match. That happened on Collision on Saturday night. Great match overall. I don't think it was as good as the best 2 out of 3 falls match with the Guns, but as far as the tournament final goes, great match. A lot of back and forth. Close calls on the 3. Obviously, we've had a couple really weird storylines with this, with Cole and MJF becoming best buddies. We've been talking about that on the show. So when we look at kind of the overall outcome of what happened, basically FTR pulls it out with, basically after a lot of the near falls, pulls it out, I think, with a roll up just to kind of get over. Basically, I believe it's Cash that rolled up MJF. And it just makes it really, really tough when you're kind of looking at that match as a whole. To finish off the match, MJF looked like he was destroyed. Josh, when you kind of were watching this match, I know it was a good match. I think we discussed that. I know that you know that it's a good match. Did you honestly think that MJF was going to crank Adam Cole with the chair when he turned his back? Did you really expect him to have that big hug with Adam Cole at the end and them staying friends?
Not necessarily. I did think that there was going to be a turn. I still think there's going to be a turn. I'm glad that they didn't do the turn yet. I think that the build-up is better this way. I think it allows them to decide who turns and when it happens. Also, I think that they're cognizant of their merchandise sales and like how over they are. It's like you don't want to give up on a story this big when you know that the bigger story is when they have a title match. I think that FTR was going. I thought that FTR was going to win from the beginning, and I think that it's interesting because the character arc of MJF is kind of like if this is his face push, then he's doing a reasonable job at it. Like showing that he can have that character development. I really don't want to see it happen because I really, really enjoy when he calls us a bunch of pores, and I love the MJF heel. I don't want to see him turn face. I think he's too good as a heel, but if he turns face, that's fine. But I think ultimately it could be, they're kind of playing that like FTR is kind of more about a tweener in this now, right? Because they were the heels in this match, and maybe they're going back to the Pinnacle, and MJF had said like I'm gonna take the loss. It was a big plan, and then they kind of help him beat Adam Cole when he faces Adam Cole for the win. There's a chance. I don't think maybe FTR is not going to be heels, but they were kind of heelish at the end.
Yeah, I think they knew that they were going to have to kind of go through, and they were kind of dealing with the face. And I think FTR has just such a great ability, regardless of where they are as tweeners, to kind of take over the heel position or to kind of be that face. There's something that we're kind of looking at right now where you're kind of talking. We're seeing like MJF's acting chops and his vulnerability, and I think that's really what it is. And he's kind of torn. He doesn't want to be opening up to people. He doesn't want people to see that vulnerability. Now, Chris, I know that. This has been an interesting storyline going through, but do you think that there's potential for kind of a really unique swerve here where Cole is the one that kind of screws over MJF and MJF stays as a face? Do you think that that's a direct possibility in this storyline? And if you had to give it an odds of it happening, do you think it's better than normal? Like, do you think it's above 50 or below 50?
I think it's below 50. I like it. I think Cole does great work as a heel. Like Cole's a fantastic heel when he puts it on, and having that foil in MJF being a face would. I didn't really think about it until you just brought it up. So that would be a really interesting thing to see. They could do a lot of. They could almost basically 180 it from what they were doing before they got together as a tag team. That would be something that I would like to see, and I'm glad you brought that up because I will be looking for that swerve.
Boundaries, that's how it works, right? But I think it's a really cool storyline. I think it's I found, I'm not gonna lie, I think I found some of the Cole and MJF stuff, like, it was like funny, but it was also kind of cringy a little bit, and I think that's part of what makes it kind of so unique. And I'm surprised, Josh, we haven't talked about the double clothesline as the finishing move, and how weak it is as a finishing move. And I'm surprised. I would probably rank that right up there with the Moxley.
Did they ever hit the clothesline for the win? Because I don't ever remember them hitting it.
Yeah, they hit it for. I think they hit it for a 2.9 on in Collision when he did it. I know they missed twice. I think they connected with it once, but I don't know if they. I think they got the win in the semifinal with it. But
wrestling fans, like pure wrestling fans, really appreciate that kind of nod to it's like we know we're being ridiculous, but they kind of like the ridiculousness.
Satire,
it's
right?
kind of like it, and they're doing it perfectly. Like if it wasn't like this, like that arc where even Adam Cole wouldn't let MJF touch him, and now clearly they're hugging it out, and they're not he's fully committed to being trustworthy with MJF. So it's good.
All right. So, we'll start the countdown. We did 3 WWE topics for SummerSlam. We did 2 AEW topics. And we got a generic topic tonight that I think will be kind of really interesting. We're going to talk about the NJPW G1 Climax tournament that happens annually, which basically consists of a bunch of wrestlers. I can't remember if it's 24 to 30. I'm not going to be super specific here, guys. Could be 32 if I'm not mistaken. But a whole bunch of wrestlers split into 4 different blocks, and basically they have winning records, and basically the top 2, I think, or the winner of each block goes to the semifinals. It's a crazy tournament. It's like the NCAA or the Champions League tournament. My question really becomes this. It's a tournament that we've watched where the winner of that tournament ends up going to fight on at basically Wrestle Kingdom, which is basically the WrestleMania of NJPW, in the main event against the world champion at that point. We look at the Owen Hart tournament here, and I find it really weak. We look at the old school King of the Ring, and even on the weekend I watched the 96 and 97 King of the Rings, where basically one of them, Mankind, almost killed himself. But these tournaments seem to be really weak in the States. Now, my question would be, do you think it's a money-grabbing opportunity to have and really showcase the talent in your whole promotion by having a tournament like this stateside? What are your thoughts on that, Chris? Chris, I know you've watched this tournament. I know we've talked about it in the past as being an amazing tournament. Do you think it could work in the United States, especially with how cable TV and PLEs work?
Yeah, that's tough. I'm not too sure. And I love the G1 Climax. I mean, you see guys like Okada, he'll lose matches, because you have to win, and it's points based. So you don't just wrestle one match and then move on. You're basically wrestling a round robin format, and you see top guys in NJPW lose to guys who aren't top guys because you'll see a roll up or you'll see a swerve that wasn't supposed to happen. But you will see those guys take losses, but they'll still go on to win the tournament. But you see that they're human and that they can lose at any time. Would that work stateside? I think with the way we're programmed, I don't think something that runs that long where you see somebody wrestle, because here if the fans see somebody lose a match, they think, oh, it's game over, they've lost that match. In Japan, the fans are a little bit different, where they realize you're going to possibly wrestle 7 different people. You're probably going to lose one of those matches. I like the King of the Ring. I always did like the King of the Ring, but I just find the tournaments here stateside are just like sudden death, sudden elimination. I win, I move on. I win, I move on. Where I don't know. Could somebody introduce something like that in AEW? Maybe it won't happen in WWE, but they've already tried kind of where they gotten away basically from the wins and losses, the records that they used to have.
No, AEW still does the wins and loss records. They're actually at the bottom of the screen. It's usually sometimes they put an all-time record, sometimes they put like the 2023 record. Like it's usually the 2023 record that they have. But even if you go on the website, the standings and the rankings and the win losses for the years are actually there.
Okay, and that's what I like about the G1 Climax. Like it matters. Wins and losses matter. It's not just I go and I win one match, I win two matches, and now I'm in the final.
Yeah.
So that's how I find they do it here. And would I like it more if they did it in the Climax style? I would. Yeah.
I think for me, it just creates so many different options to be more believable. You don't have to have a 3-year Roman Reigns-esque, holding on to the title where he can lose and he can be fragile and actually lose a match and, not have it be the end of the world of like this crazy undefeated streak. Because, the reality is that even up to the pin against Jey Uso, it's like it's a Goldberg-esque streak, right? And like I don't know what the fascination is with the United States about having this, big long streak. It seems to be doing that in every single sport where it's like we only want to see the undefeated guy and then he gets beat and then it's all of a sudden believable that he's going to lose on a regular basis. It's like the aura that surrounds it, right? Josh, do you think that there's more opportunity for companies to actually have a believable product at this point, if that's the case? And if you had to pick between WWE or AEW, which one do you think would benefit more from this tournament?
I think AEW would benefit more because it would allow you to develop some of those younger wrestlers that they desperately need to develop into superstars, right? So it gives them the rub from those larger stars because, like Chris was saying, it allows a wrestler to lose without actually losing. I also agree with Chris about the, like the North American or maybe just the American attitude about like a one and done, like, eliminator style matches where, you've got to be the best all the time and that's how you determine who's the best. But like in reality, a lot of these things are more like a marathon and, having the ability to be well-rounded and come back. That's part of what wrestling is about. And I think that I agree with you, Matt. It might have, been a salami topic at some point, but that really we're seeing this the best. They're trying to prolong everybody's titles and saying like this is the longest reigning this is the longest reigning champion of this, and it's getting boring. And is it just because WWE really doesn't have any other wrestlers that they're willing to push and give the limelight to? And I think that's really truly what it is they've invested in a few stars. And so I think that AEW would benefit more from this, and I think that they could pull it off. But yeah.
I have a feeling that they both would. I think WWE, if you were actually bringing NXT stars for this tournament and actually brought them into the mix, and you could have some really unique things that happen. And if you were to bring them in now, you'd have guys like Braun Breaker, you'd have guys like Carmelo, like even like somebody that would be great for that tournament that would be hilarious would be like the Don, Tony D'Angelo. Like there's just so many little things that you can have in there. And even if the Don goes 1-3, it doesn't matter. Like you can kind of see how he's going to look under those big lights on a SmackDown on a Friday night, or how he's going to look on a Monday night. Instead of having them in these dark matches that are there, that really doesn't give you any inclination if the fans are going to like them or love them. You actually get real-time data by looking at those guys in those things in a tournament like that. So I look at AEW and I look at their product. I actually think I lean more towards it would benefit the WWE more if they did it. But will they do it? I think they would probably be the second out of the two that would. I think AEW would do it over them, and I think that's just the kind of the ironic part of it, right? I think that's the rigidity of the WWE. And because it's so rigid, you're never going to be able to look through... you're not going to be able to look through the magnifying glass at a box and look like outside of the box or look differently at whatever you're looking at. And that's the problem. And I think a lot of other promotions right now are willing to do that. And I think You're even seeing success with some of the indie promotions like JCW. You're seeing a lot of stuff with, whatever it is, Progress and some different ones like that too, right? Like seeing a lot of success because they're willing to look outside the box. So, Josh, do us a big, big favor here, buddy. We're going into Boston. We're going into the deli. Tell us what slices your salami.
So this week in Slices My Salami, I'm getting tired of the leg slaps. There's 40 leg slaps in every match. Clearly know what a punch sounds like. We know what a kick sounds like. I don't know why an elbow sounds like a slap. I think I even saw someone slap themselves without anything happening the other day. Even a slap isn't a slap anymore. I'm not sure. All I know is we're being trained to expect a leg slap. I'm okay with not hearing the noise. I think that the move can just be as devastating without the slaps. In fact, the best slaps are when you can clearly see the kick misses the face because the camera didn't turn correctly, and yet they still make a noise. Maybe it's the crack of the whip. Their leg moved so quickly that it made a snap. But the leg slaps need to stop, or at least need to be reduced. And yeah, that's it.
That's what slices his salami. Good point. You know what? Leg slaps have been a topic of discussion a lot. I remember Vince, Chris, I think we remember Vince at one point, I think, completely banned them. He thought they were just so ridiculously stupid. I personally like them, but I find them kind of like what you said. It's like tope suicidas. They're very frequent. So, but that being said, we're coming into the long weekend here. We're coming into our civic holiday for the month of August here in Canada and Ontario or whatever. So cheers, boys. I hope you have a couple brews this weekend. I hope everything goes well and that we have a great week. For everybody else out there, Radio Podcast Land, again, you can find us on all major outlets. You can find us on Spotify, Google Play, yada, 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 YouTube, Discord, all those things. Find us, follow us, hit that subscribe button. It helps us out. You can also hit us up at the web, wrestling@outlook.com. That's a great way to connect with us if you want to, or to let us know of any rumors or anything that you want to talk about on the show, because we will gladly do it. We love to hear from you, so thank you so much. I know that we've had a little bit higher viewership rate as of recently, so for all the new viewers that are out there listening, thank you very much for listening. Gentlemen, anything you'd like to add? All right.
No, I'm good.
So with that being said, wherever you are in the world tonight, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. We all bids you adieu. Bang!